At this time, I call to order regular governing board meeting. Mr. Santa Cruz, can you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call.
Governing Board President, Ms. Maria Guzman.
Present.
Governing Board Clerk, Ms. Maria Hernandez.
Present.
Governing Board Member, Mr. Rudy Santa Cruz.
Present.
Governing Board Member, Ms. Patricia Jimenez.
Here.
And Governing Board Member, Mr. Harry Gerwell.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item is approval of August 15, 2024 regular governing board meeting agenda. Is there a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Call for the vote. Motion carries. Next item, approval of June 27, 2024 public hearing and regular governing board meeting minutes. Is there a motion? Any questions, discussions?
Yes, Madam President. I just like to have acknowledged that, I did log on and then I was dropped off. So it didn't show that in the minutes, I was on travel. And so I was able to stay on up until, I think it was the board reports, so we can just note that.
Okay, thank you. Call for the vote. Motion carries. Next item is governing board report. First person is me. It feels like it's been forever. I haven't been up here. I just want to welcome everyone back. I hope you guys all had a nice summer and got to relax. It's great to be back here with all of you guys as we kick off the new school year. I look forward to visiting schools soon and see all the wonderful things that are going on in you guys' school. That's it. Thank you. Next is Mr. Santa Cruz.
Thank you. I just want to wish everybody back. I know it's still kind of hot. I'm glad to be back. For those of you who didn't know, I had a knee operation there for a while, so I stayed home quite a bit. It's like driving me crazy. I get that, I don't know what cabin fever. So, but anyway, I'm glad to be back, and thanks for everybody for showing up.
Thank you. Mr. Gilwell.
Yes, Madam President. Yes. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to a new school year. I'm excited. I think we're going to have a very good and productive school year. We've got a lot of things going on right now. So welcome back. And hopefully by Halloween, it'll be less than 100 degrees. So we can only hope, right? Just a couple of items I wanted to share. First of all, I just came back from the Fiesta Bowl kickoff luncheon, and I'm happy to tell you that two of our community organizations were funded this year to the charitable giving organizations. And those notices will be coming out, and I'm hopeful that we can recognize those organizations that put in for it. The second thing was that we're also now launching Wishes for Teachers. Last year we had two teachers from Isaac that were awarded. And so we did about 500 teachers and we were awarding about, actually we are awarded $1,250,000 at $2,500 a teacher. So I would encourage all the principals to encourage your teachers to put in the applications because they can go and apply for a $2,500 grant that they can use for anything inside the classrooms, which will be very helpful for them. The next item is something that I think we all been watching, and it was interesting because today I read that the Arizona Department of Education informed the schools in July that was cutting school improvement grants, and we knew that was coming down, right? And part of that was a result of $29 million being returned, which to me is an atrocity. Anytime we return federal funds, I think it's a terrible, terrible thing for us to do, especially because it impacts our kids. And so there's a blame game going on. Everybody's blaming each other and what have you. But at the end of the day, it also reduced our budget, right? As far as our improvement grants, which provide professional development, what have you. So I'm interested to see what's going to happen going forward. And one of the things that we did learn today was that Superintendent Horn has been called in front of a committee next month in September to testify about, why that happened, why we missed those dates. But the good news is that the U.S. Department of Education has approved for the state of Arizona to put in for a waiver, and that will give us an extended period of time to be able to go out and apply. I don't know how many of those dollars are in Isaac, but anytime that, we can go back and claw back funds that we lost to the federal government and put them back into programming in our schools, I think it's a good thing. So, just something that I wanted to bring to everybody's attention because this is something that's been ongoing for a while. But we also know that we were expected 2.5% increase from the legislature. We ended up getting a 2%. And unfortunately, or very fortunately, we're in a good position to be able to provide those increases that we made a commitment as a board for the budget. All right. But at the same time, we know that, funding for schools in Arizona continue to be reduced. So I just want to make sure that we always keep our eyes on that ball. So with that, Madam President, that's the end of my report.
Thank you. Ms. Hernandez?
Thank you, Madam President. I want to thank everybody for being here this tarde, this afternoon, this evening, however you want to put it. It's very hot. I know that it's a struggle to get out here, but but we're here. And I'm wishing you all the best to start the year off real well because I know that it's chaos out there with picking up the kids and dropping them off, and things are still kind of falling into place. But there's a lot of excitement in the air. The kids are happy. They're um, willing to get to school and start their day, and seeing the parents there as well, picking them up, dropping them off, and um, it's a joy to see that everything's back functioning again. And I just wish you all to continue the good work. And I look forward to also visiting your sites, your schools, and continue to strive for what's best for all our scholars and stuff and staff. So just want to wish you guys all a good start.
Thank you. Ms. Jimenez?
Thank you, Madam President. I also want to welcome to a new 2024-2025 school year. Bienvenidos a los padres de familia que están aquí. Es un nuevo año y nuevo principio. I want to thank everybody for the rally, everybody that helped. It was amazing at Grand Canyon University. That's something that I always look forward to. And I just want to, I know I only have 3 minutes. So have you guys been watching the Olympics?
Yes.
It's been very powerful, and I put those 2 pictures, and I had some really good help from a great friend. And I'm always talking about 3 things, and I kind of want to, I'm going to read it, okay, because I want to make sure that. So something that for us to focus on. As we embark on this new school year, let's channel the spirit of remarkable achievement, such as the USA did the winning gold in the 100-meter race by a razor-thin margin of 0.005 seconds. This victory is powerful, a reminder that every fraction of a second counts, just as every day in our educational journey is critical. This year, let's adopt a mindset that focuses on the end goals. Customer service, effective communication, and accountability. These elements are crucial as they directly impact the success and experience of our students and their families. Customer service. In our context means every interaction with students, parents, and each other is an opportunity to build trust, promote a positive community environment. Just as the athletes listen to their coaches and respond to their training, we must listen to our community and respond to the needs with emphasis and effectiveness. Communication is about clarity and precision, much like a precision needed to win the race, like the mile seconds. We need to ensure that our message is clear, our intentions are understood, and our goals are transparent across all levels of our district. Accountability It is our commitment to hold ourselves accountable to each other, to the highest standard of education and integrity, ensuring that we are always moving forward our end goals of student achievement and their well-being. So just remember, as we start this year, let's commit these principles with the energy and determination that bring our athletes to the podium. Let's ensure that every second counts toward making our school district a beacon of success and nurturing ground of our future leaders. It is very important as our community that we do not turn parents away. Am I done with my minutes? Okay, I'm see that's what I meant. And that we just remember accountability, customer service, and communication is very important because we need to continue telling our story. It's about telling our story and how are we taking care of our parents, our family, and our community. And that's all I wanted to say. So I wish you guys a great school year. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Superintendent Update, Dr. Ventura.
Madam President, members of the board, and Isaac community, it was a long summer and a busy one, so I'm going to give a little bit of a recap of the great things that happened, along with preparing our buildings and bringing in all our resources and getting them ready to be shipped out to the schools so we can open schools. We had an amazing welcome back to school health fair that was on July 20th. In collaboration with United Healthcare, we had families gathering, coming to our schools. They actually, Isaac Middle School, for this a fantastic event. They received backpacks, they received other services and opportunities to help their families prepare for school. So we thank everyone involved with that great back to school health fair that we've done year after year. We also had our annual neighborhood walk. This tradition has been going on for quite some time, since I believe 1990. And this tradition is where we get ready that week before school begins. We go out and knock on doors and remind our families that school's right around the corner. So let's be prepared. Let's come and make sure that the first week of school is a successful one. So we want to thank everyone involved with that as well. We also had our back to school rally, as was mentioned earlier, and that's always a lot of fun, coming all together, seeing the staff of Isaac as we begin to prepare, to receive, to to celebrate what learning and teaching is all about. So thank you, all of you, for being part of that rally and being fully engaged. And then finally, August 5th was our first day of school, and it was great to see a lot of our families here, dropping off their kids, and all the work that you guys do in helping them feel welcome. And along that note, this year we had a little bit of a surprise, but it was a good surprise. We received about 100 new students from their refugees from the Middle East and Africa. And I want to thank our staff, in our schools, that went above and beyond to receive these families and help them feel welcomed. Help them, I saw firsthand how our staff went out of their way to try to understand the life experiences of our new families and students and do their very best to make them feel welcomed, and still reaching out, trying to communicate using technology to teach, to translate. It was amazing of all just how our staff went above and beyond to embrace our new members of the Isaac community. So thank you all staff members that were involved with that. Thank you leaders for setting that tone of we are a big family and we're here to embrace diversity. And with that, that concludes my report, Madam President.
Thank you. Next item, new business information and discussion and action. First one is Supernova Total Wellness present awards to Isaac Community for well-being engagement. Jaylee Stewart, Wellness Coach, presentation. Jaylee?
Welcome.
Does everybody get nervous every time that you guys come up here?
Just you.
Yes. How are you guys? Maybe some of you already know me. My name is Jaylee Stewart. I have a program, Supernova Total Wellness, that wants to present to the, um, excuse me, that wants to present to the district, especially to the panel of the committed, because they are always supporting the health and wellness, not only of the families and the kids that come to the schools, but also to the whole community, because everybody in the community is welcome to our classes, including with their kids. And before I present this, I would like to have one of the parents that would like to thank you because it has impact in a great way, the way that you guys support the health and wellness of these families. And Elizabeth will talk to you a little bit before I present this to you guys. Thank you very much.
Ya. Buenas tardes a todos. Mi nombre es Elizabeth Zárate y la verdad de las cosas es que estoy súper emocionada por venir a representar el programa de Supernova, sobre todo para hablar con todos ustedes, miembros de la mesa directiva, todas las personas de la comunidad y todas las personas presentes. La verdad estoy súper agradecida con todos ustedes porque el programa de Supernova cambió totalmente mi vida, no nada más física, sino emocional y sentimentalmente, porque ahora me siento diferente, soy una persona nueva, ha cambiado, aparte de que yo he cambiado, ha mejorado el entorno de mi familia, he mejorado en muchísimas cosas, he tenido la oportunidad de conocer a personas maravillosas como el señor Jay Lee, que ha hecho un trabajo maravilloso, más que un entrenador, es un amigo, es un miembro de mi familia, porque hace muchísimo más, da un 1000% de lo que debería de dar, porque aparte del entrenamiento que nos da apoyo emocional, siempre está ahí para ayudarnos en nuestras necesidades y en cualquier parte que nos encontremos, él siempre está ahí para motivarnos. Entonces, la verdad, gracias a todos y no tengo palabras más para darles las gracias y que este programa continúe por siempre, porque ha hecho un cambio muy grandísimo en montones y montones de familias de nuestro vecindario y en otras partes más. Gracias.
Well, aquí tenemos, sorry, we have right here a couple awards that we want to present. We're almost here for 10 years. Thank you so much for the support once again. It's not so much to the program, but to the health of the families, the wellness. And I think I have seen hundreds and hundreds of families that have come to the classes. I have seen kids, go from first grade and graduate. This is beautiful to see everybody, engage not only on coming to the classes, but doing the hard walks, doing the runs, doing so many things that we have created together. So we have these two awards, one for 5 years, one for 10 years. And this is for you guys. Thank you so much. And once again, we want to thank you, not only me, but the entire families, hundreds of them that you guys have supported their health and changed their life. Thank you so much, guys. I want to leave this here for you. Thank you for that support.
The board like to come up and receive
Please,
you.
we have your names right here, guys, everybody. Please, please.
Vengan los padres para una foto.
I did it with this dress. And I put John, I see a blue, and I put black shoes on, and I'm like, it's blue. I saw it's black.
Oh, all that way we. Thank you again.
Get low riding.
Yeah, I was writing real bad.
Madam President,
Ms. Jimenez?
can I make a comment?
Go ahead.
Primeramente les quiero dar las gracias. Este programa, como dijo Jay Lee, and I'm going to say it in Spanish, okay, I'm not going to translate it, but I'll try. Cuando comenzó 10 años atrás, estoy muy agradecida con el doctor Ventura porque él siempre ha apoyado la salud mental, lo físico y siempre es muy importante y Jaylee, gracias por lo que haces con nuestras familias. Yo sé que ya he ido a sus clases y son difíciles, pero son buenas. So, este año hay que seguir motivando a más padres que estén involucrados, como dijiste tú. Mira, te ves muy bien es para tu familia, es para, más que todo para ti, para que tú puedas proveer para la familia. So, muchas gracias y muchos éxitos más y hay que seguir apoyándote en lo que podamos para que más familias se involucren. Gracias. Thank you.
Is there any other comment from the board? Any questions?
I'd like to give a comment, Madam
Ms.
President.
Hernandez, go ahead.
Yo también les quiero decir al grupo, porque casi la mayoría también hablan español, dicen que los hechos son más fuertes que las habladas. Y se ha mirado mucho los hechos en lo que usted ha servido en esta comunidad con los padres y las mamases que andan tratando de mejorar su salud y su bienestar. So, felicidades a ustedes que siguen y que logran a tomar esta oportunidad. I just want to say, I want to thank everybody that for this nice program that it has served our community, that they say action speaks louder than words, and you can actually see it. So it's a nice thing to see that, the impact it has on the community and the parents and stuff. So that's a positive impact on our community. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Anyone else? Well, I also want to thank you, Jaylee, for the hard work you have done with the parents. I did almost 5 months and I gave up. His classes are really hard. Elizabeth, I have known her from the beginning. She has changed completely.
Mhm.
I remember because of her losing the weight, she had a baby.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yes.
so it was like, thank you for what you have done with our parents. Thank you. Thank you. Next item is the Attorney General Financial Risk Assessment presentation. Presentation, discussion, and information, Dr. Ventura.
Madam President, members of the board, and as a community, it's a great honor to present to you representatives from the Auditor General's office. We have with us Amanda Wynn, Megan Heiger, and Michael Coranahan, and they're going to review a service that the Auditor General's office provides called the Financial Risk Assessment. They provide this service to school districts to help them avoid possible financial pitfalls that may be headed their way. So tonight, they are here to review the Isaac School District financial risk analysis.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Ventura, for that introduction. Good evening, Madam President, board members. My name is Megan Heeger. I am the Director of the Accountability Services Division at the Arizona Auditor General's Office. And with me today is Amanda Wynn and Michael Carnahan. I want to start off by thanking you for providing us this time today to walk through our financial risk analysis website and discuss your district's December 2023 results as one of the 4 highest risk districts identified in that report. Now, I will say the information we'll be going over today is from December 2023. That's the most recent information we have available on our site at this time. This process of presenting to the highest risk districts board members is new for us. So going forward, we will be looking to do this type of presentation much closer to our issuance date so we can talk about that most recent information available at the time. There will be some instances when Amanda and Michael can touch a little bit on some newer data that's available that has been publicly available since that report issuance date. So if you aren't already familiar, our financial risk analysis looks at 10 financial measures to identify districts at the highest risk based on both their current and potential future financial difficulties. Collectively, the measures relate to a district's overall risk of not being able to operate within its available cash resources and budget constraints. Now, the purpose of the report is to provide district decision makers, such as yourself and stakeholders, with information and data to help you better understand your district's financial risks and then be able to use that information when making district budget and finance related decisions. Before we start in on it, I did also just want to take a quick moment to mention that we did also issue a letter to your district towards the end of July related to noncompliance with the USFR. I only bring that up to mention that they are two separate processes, the noncompliance and the financial risk. And members of our staff have already started to meet with your district management since that letter issuance date to talk about the deficiencies in the report for noncompliance, talk about some resources that are available to them, and discuss the district's planned corrective actions for them. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Michael and Amanda to walk through the report site.
All right, I'm Amanda Wynn, and I'm going to start us at the very beginning, which is the front page of our website, which is azauditor.gov. So in case you don't know how to get to our financial risk analysis, I'm going to walk you all the way through. So at the very bottom of our page, I don't know if that one's, I don't know why that's there, but there's a view report button for the school district financial risk analysis. And this takes you to like a landing page where you can get to quick links for different parts of the report, but we're not going to focus on this necessarily, but we're going to start with the overview. So on this overview page, it's the statewide results of the report, and we compare this year's data to last year's data in this summary, narrative summary at the top. Then we have our current high-risk districts and the location. So there's also an expandable list here, so you can see right away which high-risk measures you have. And you also have a quick way to get to your district results. And you can also see who else is in the highest risk. The next part is, as Megan mentioned, there's 10 financial measures, and they are grouped into these 7 different categories here. We'll go over those in more detail as we go over your district results. I want to draw your attention to this box in particular, that is the financial risk plan template. This is something that can be downloaded and used to be able to walk through what are your financial risks, as well as document what your plan is to mitigate them. Next thing on our overview page is this graphic that shows you kind of our process for the year. We gather data, we analyze changes, we communicate with the districts, and then we report annually on the data that we have at that time. At the very bottom of this page is the full data set that's available for download, and that has all the districts in the state, and it has all the measures that we'll go over, as well as state results. So if you're looking to do some comparisons or know what data points we're pulling in one place, you can download that file. So now we're going to go to the next part up here. I forgot to mention that this About tab here can be used to learn more about our report if you want to know more than what we're telling you tonight, like where it originated from and things like that. Next is the state results page. And this I'm showing you just so that if you want to do some comparisons, this top part is high level of how many districts in the state are high risk for each measure. You can also search by county and legislative district. So if we search Maricopa County, you can see this is how many in the county. Now I know Maricopa is a big county, so that may not be super helpful, but we do have this list of school districts for high risk on each measure down here that is filterable, sortable, so you can see at a quick glance if you want to do some comparisons. Then we're going to go to the district results page. It lands on Agua Fria, so if you just navigate to Isaac, so we can look at your measures. Sorry. All right, so as you can see on the top of this page, we do notate on your page that you're among the highest risk districts. We also have a narrative summary of the results that are down below in the cards that we'll go over in detail. And then we have the district response that was provided to us from your district management in December 2023 that was in response to the measures. We also we're not going to go over in detail as much every single measure, but if you want to know more about these measures than what we're telling you tonight, there is a link here, or there is a link up here that takes you to the individual measures. They're alphabetical, but they can give you information about what it's telling you, what we use to calculate it, how you're identified for high risk for that measure, as well as the data source. And I should have done that differently. All right. Sorry. So we're going to look at each measure now in detail, and we're going to start off with Michael doing this first set of cards.
Thank you, man. Awesome. Thank you, Amanda. My name is Michael Carnahan. So the first measure we'll be going over is the weighted student count. So this measure shows the district's 1 year and 4 year change in weighted student count. Group This is categorized by Group A students, which is students for common student needs and is based on the district size and location. A single substantial decrease in weighted student count or multiple decreases over multiple years can show greater financial risk as it results in less student count generated revenues. So these loss in student count generated revenues can result in decrease in reserves if similar levels of spending are not also reduced. So we obtain this information from Arizona Department of Education student count reports. Districts can use these reports on a monthly basis to monitor their weighted student count. So for Isaac is considered a medium-sized district, so the risk threshold for the 1 year change is 5%, and for the 4 year change, it is 7.5%. For a district, the weighted student count has been declining over multiple years, and the analysis tab shows a 20% decline over the 4 year change and a 4.8% decline over the 1 year change. So the district exceeded the high risk threshold for that 4 year change and is very close to the 1 year change threshold. So the data tab shows the number of weighted student counts, and it shows that there was a substantial decrease from 2020 to 2021 with consistent declines in previous years. So the next two measures we'll talk about the district's budget limit reserves along with its budget limits. So every Arizona school district is required to have statutory prescribed maintenance and operation, or M&O, and unrestricted capital outlay, or UCO, fund budget limits. And then at the end of each fiscal year, any unspent operating or capital budget capacity is carried forward into the previous year and increases the next year's operating and capital budget limits. So in some instances, districts can have a positive budget limit reserve based even if they lack the cash to fully support their budget capacity. So districts with these unfunded reserves may be able to work with their counties to increase future property tax rates in certain situations exist. However, districts with a frozen tax rate cannot increase its tax rate to generate revenues to fund these unfunded reserves. So districts are high risk for this measure if the budget limit is overspent or substantially decreased over multiple years or is unfunded more than 10%. On the operating budget limit reserve, while the ratios do show a positive increase, the data tab shows a operating budget limit reserve of about $2 million in fiscal year 2023. The balance was entirely unfunded due to the negative maintenance and operation fund balance and frozen tax rate. So we will talk more about the district's cash deficits and the general fund measures next. So on the capital budget limit, the district is considered high risk due to the substantial decrease in the 1 year change. So from the data tab shows that in fiscal years 20 to 23, it decreased with only $100,000 available in reserves for the following year. And now Amanda will talk about the general fund measures.
So the general fund measures are three different measures that all are related to your general fund. They're the operating reserve ratio, the operating margin ratio, and the change in fund balance for your general fund. So each of these three measures analyzes components of the district's general fund balance. And they use similar data, but they're all looking at different components of the district's general fund revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balances. And this is to identify potential risks related to general fund resources. So although each of these measures has that same financial data, we'll look at the different relationships between the data for these three measures. The general fund is a district's primary operating fund, which is why we focus on it in our analysis. It accounts for all financial resources used for maintenance and operations, except those that are required to be accounted for and reported in a separate fund. So we obtain the district's general fund amounts from your fiscal year 2022 audited financial statements, and then we obtain the fiscal year 23 from your unaudited annual financial reports or AFRs that are submitted to ADE, because that's the most recent data we have at the time of our report. The important thing to note with these measures is that we don't compare them together because they're two different data there's two different data sources and years for so they're not easily they can't be compared to each other. So make sure you pay attention to what year and what data and when you're looking at these measures. So let's start with the operating reserve ratio. This shows the percent of general fund monies held in reserve for future spending or your fund balance compared to your total spending from the prior year. So a negative operating reserve ratio indicates a negative fund balance, which means the district must use monies received in the following year to cover prior year spending. So all districts with a negative operating reserve ratio is in either of the most recent 2 years were considered high risk for this measure. So the district's negative 5.5% operating reserve ratio is considered high risk due to that there's almost a 2.4 million negative balance in M&O if you look or in your general fund, as you can see here. So the district has had a cash deficit in the M&O fund since 2014, with a peak deficit of about 9.3% in 2018. That's according to the district accounting records. From our conversations with the superintendent and the business manager, we understand that the district is working on this and reducing the deficit over time. And we can see the reduction in the recent years of our analysis. However, until that deficit is completely eliminated, it still indicates financial risk for the district. And also because of the continued cash deficit, the district has had to issue tax anticipation notes to accommodate your spending. In the fiscal year 2023 financial statements, it showed a balance of $15 million owed for tax anticipation notes, which will accrue interest cost for the district. So as you can see, the district's fiscal year 22 financial statement reserve was positive, and the district's newest information for fiscal year 23 also currently shows a positive 1.5 million general fund ending balance. And the reason for that is we use the general fund for your financial statement reporting purposes can be different than what the funds we use for AFR reporting, which is the 5 most common funds that people use in their general fund. So it is possible that in this next report, based on your 24 AFR, that ratio could still be negative, even though your 23 should be positive. The next one is the operating margin ratio, and even though you're not high risk on this, I just wanted to touch on it since it's related to the general fund. The operating margin ratio shows the percent of district general fund revenues not spent in the year received for each of the most recent 2 years. A negative ratio indicates that the district spent more money than it received for the year and could be considered at high risk for this measure. A district with below average operating reserves exposes itself to higher financial risk each time its spending exceeds its revenues. So all districts with a negative operating margin ratio are considered high risk for this measure. So your district ratios are both positive, And if we look at the data tab, you can see that your revenues exceeded your expenditures, which results in those positive ratios. The next card is our financial position, change in fund balance. So this measure shows the 1-year percentage change for each of the most recent 2 years in the district's general fund balance. Declining fund balances of a negative fund balance in the most recent year indicate higher financial risk as less resources remain available for current and future needs. So all districts with a 1-year general fund balance decrease of 25% or more for either of the most recent 2 years were considered high risk for this measure. Additionally, districts with a negative fund balance in the most recent year were considered high risk for this measure when their fund balance increased from the prior year. So as you can see on your card, the district has increased your general fund balance 37.3% from 22 to 23. And then there's a 100% increase on 21 to 22. And that's because there was a negative balance that went to a positive balance. So you got over 100%. So even though the ratios are positive, and the data tab also shows a positive change, because you still have this negative amount of your fund balance, this is considered high risk for your district. One more thing to keep in mind is in relation to both the budget limit and general fund financial measures is the COVID-19 federal relief monies that the district received since fiscal year 2020. We don't consider that specifically in the analysis, but since the district was awarded approximately 61 million in awards since fiscal year 2020, and as of our report date, the district has reported spending 44.5 million of those monies between 2022 and 2023. That keeping in mind as those grants, some have expired and some are coming to expiration September 30th, 2024, that if you haven't already, that you're thinking about what you're going to do to make sure that those COVID funds, whatever you spent them on, that you are thinking about them when they're no longer available. So next, Michael will go over the next set of cards.
Thank you. So I'll be touching on the capital monies redirected to operations. So even though the district is in high risk, I'd like to touch on this measure. So this measure shows the percentage of capital monies that are redirected to operations in the current year and on a 5-year average. So even though the district is not high risk for this measure, it has redirected a portion of its capital monies to operations over the last 5 years, as shown by the data tab. So districts that redirect over 25% of capital monies to operations can be considered high risk, as they can be putting off necessary operational spending cuts, or when large capital spending arises, if there's low reserves. So next is the small school budget limit adjustment, which does not apply to this district since they are too large to be eligible for a small school adjustment. And last is the frozen tax measure. So this measure shows whether a district's primary property tax rate is frozen. A frozen tax rate by itself can increase financial risk, and it can affect other measures through unfunded operating and capital budget limit reserves, which can result in negative cash balances, which further increases financial risk, as we discussed in the previous measures. So for districts with the frozen property tax rate, continuing to spend based on the unfunded budget capacity can result in a negative cash balance and increased borrowing costs. So the district has been frozen every year from 2017 to 2024, except for 2020. So the December 23 Property Tax Oversight Commission report shows the district's tax rate is not frozen for fiscal year 2025. That report was not available at the time of our report issuance. However, the district is close to the frozen tax threshold, and it is at risk of being frozen again, depending on changes in tax rate and property values. Now, Amanda will discuss the last measure.
So our last measure here doesn't apply to your district, but if receivership is when a district is operating under a State Board of Education approved receiver due to gross mismanagement or insolvency. So you're not high risk for that one. I want to point out this last piece, this less common revenues in fiscal year 2023. So if you are comparing among districts, you just want to keep in mind that you do have some extra funding sources of desegregation and overrides that some other districts may not. So when you're looking at balances and such, that could affect the comparison. So I just want to remind you as we wrap up that even if a district isn't in the highest risk districts, that you still may have high risk measures. And that each measures data and the results provide insight into the district's financial status, and those high-risk measures should be considered when making financial decisions for the district. So going forward, we'll continue to communicate with district management as we get new results, and then we will issue a new report at the end of this year. That concludes, and then like Megan mentioned, we will be happy to come back and report on those new results. And that concludes our presentation. Are there any questions?
Is there any question from the board?
Madam President.
Mr. Gilwell?
Yes, first of all, thank you for the presentation. I'm really glad that, Dr. Ventura, yourself, and President Guzman were able to bring the Auditor General's office in to explain these things because this has been an ongoing situation, and I think it just recently that we became high risk, as you saw on the measures here, right? So just a point of clarification, we're looking at 10 measures, right? And of the 10, 6 of those are the districts at risk at 6 of the 10. Is that correct?
Mhm.
Okay. And so I think there's, some improvements that we need to go through here. And by the way, I love your website. I actually went on it.
Great.
And kind of an analysis that I did on my own, right, is that I know that there's 16 school districts within the Phoenix Union High School District boundaries. And so I went to each one of those school districts and looked at their reports. And I can tell you that of the 16, 2 had no measurements, no negative measurements. 8 had 1. 4 had 2. 1 had 3, and Isaac had 6. So 50% of all the nonconformities, right, were found here in the Isaac School District. So it's really important that we see these so that we can start to make our corrective actions. And Dr. Ventura, we've had these conversations in the past, so I'm really glad that we're bringing it up and we can look at it because I believe that if we understand, and this is something that I think it's important for us as a board, is to understand what we can do to contribute to help the district get back to a good level here. And the other thing that I did find was I went back into the year's data points from 2024 to 2020. So your website is very robust. There's a lot of really great information on there. So obviously you can tell I'm a little bit of a geek on these things, right? So I love doing data. But I think it's helpful for us, it's helpful for me as a school board member to identify, what are the things that I can possibly bring along with my colleagues in order to help the improvement, because at the end of the day, it always comes down to our students. If we're down right now, if I heard you correctly, our tax anticipation bond debt is about 15 million.
That was according to your financial statements, yes.
And so that's a debit. That's a deficit that we have right now. At some point, I don't know how we take care of that, how it gets paid off or what have you, right? But those are the kinds of things that, I want to understand a lot better. The other thing that also brought up was the fact that we have, the COVID funds, right? And the ESSER funds, and I know that some of the improvements that we saw was as a result of getting our ESSER 1, ESSER 2, and ESSER 3, that helped us out in a different way. So I just wanted to make those comments because I think it's really important for our community to understand, right? And for us to be able to look at it. So again, I appreciate the agency coming in and helping us to look at this, but I think there's good data on here, good information on here. And I think it's something that, we need to spend a little more time on. So I know Dr. Ventura, we're talking about another study session sometime, in September. So, we could really delve into this a little bit more because I know we're a little bit short of time today. But I know that's part of the plan. So I just want to, express my appreciation to the agency for coming in and doing this, and appreciation to the superintendent, for making sure that we were able to get this information out.
Mhm. Thank you. Any other question from the board? Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Next item is approval of student services purchase order for contract service. Ms. Ling Lang, Chief Financial Office. Is there a motion? Is there a second? Ms. Lane?
Good evening, Madam President, members of the governing board. Back in March, March 28th, the governing board approved multiple vendors as student services providers under our RFP 2023-016. This evening, we're requesting approval for the attached purchase orders that apply to these vendors in order to provide services for our special education students for 24-25.
Thank you. Is there any question? Oh, you seconded it.
Yes, I did. Second.
Thank you.
Is there any question from the board? Call for the vote. Motion carries. Next item is approval of a pay for performance plan for the 2024-2025 school year. Ms. Sylvia Carizosa, Executive Director of Employee Relations. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there- Ms. Carizosa?
Good evening, Madam President, governing board members, Dr. Ventura, and the Isaac community. We stand here before you today, Ms. Andrea Valencia, representing IDEA President, and we are pleased to review the 24-25 Pay for Performance Handbook. As stated today, the focus is to do our annual review for our handbook, and we are pleased to inform you there are minimal changes, but we want to make sure that we bring this to the board and, of course, recommend your approval as we proceed with this handbook. I do want to recognize and celebrate the diverse committee representation that we had and honor the work that Mr. Arenas and Ms. Andrea Valencia did in co-presenting, co-chairing this committee, and then, of course, the other members that supported this work. It was something that we met throughout the year and then reached the conclusions here today to make sure that it's still aligned to our collective commitments, excuse me. So here before you, you'll see the four different subgroups. There are key components for each subgroups. As you will see in each one of them, it is focused on professional growth, their goals, and ultimately we know this will allow and have implications on student achievement. So each subgroup is each subgroup is able to receive and is eligible for pay for performance. As I stated before, for this handbook, there are minimal changes. We look for continued consistency within the handbook. The performance criteria is detailed in the handbook that you see before you, and then also the eligibility, ensuring that it was open to all subgroups. I'll pass it over to Ms. Valencia.
Good evening. So as you know, it is very critical that we have staff input as part of this year's review process. And as a result of that for our handbook, we did send this out to our staff members here in the district. And we did have rounding up to an 85% approval rate with 123 responses.
Thank you. And with that, that concludes our short presentation. Again, there was minimal changes, and we look forward to providing this opportunity to all stakeholders once again. And if you have any questions, we'll entertain your questions.
Thank you. Is there any question from the board? Thank you. Call for the vote. Motion carries. Next item is approval of Morris K. Udall chiller replacement. Mr. David Morales, Director of Support Services. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Morales?
Madam President, members of the board, committee, we bring for you tonight approval of a Morris K. Udall chiller replacement. In March of 2024, we applied for emergency BRG because the chiller had outlived its useful life. The SFB did approve the replacement in July of 2024. Um, the new chiller will be replaced with a dual compressor, which is also a lot more expensive, but they went ahead and approved that. That gives us some added redundancy because chiller is able to operate with just one compressor versus the two, but it gives us that protection. And then, again, we do have an existing chiller, an additional chiller we replaced 4 or 5 years ago, I think, with in a BRG as well. The Since we were able to use a cooperative, we were able to go with Daikin, which is the current manufacturer that we have, the existing one. This will fit in well with our maintenance plan that we have. There is a 1 year parts and labor warranty on the existing one. And then after that, the comprehensive maintenance plan will kick in and that will take care of any maintenance and repair as well as replacement parts. So Madam President, members of the board, we ask for your approval tonight to award Daikin Applied in the amount of $544,335.49. Again, this will be funded by the state.
Thank you. Is there any question from the board? Call for the vote.
49 cents.
49 cents.
Motion carries. Next item is consent. Is there a motion to approve the whole consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Call for the vote. Motion carries. Next item is call to the public.
Madam President, at this time, there is no request to address the governing board.
Thank you. Next item is information. Enrollment is at 4,919. Our calendar is September 2nd, Labor Day, no school. Next regular governing board meeting will be held 5 p.m. on Thursday, August 29, 2024 at Pueblo del Sol, K-8 Elementary School located at 3449 North 39th Avenue, Phoenix, Arizona. And if there's no objection, meeting adjourned. Thank you.